Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right.
What are 3 things you love about Fort McMurray?
Everything. The fact that we're in the middle of the Borealis forest, the Snai, Mac Island, hunting, fishing, the rivers. There's more than 3 things. Like I couldn't trim it down to 3.
What made you decide to run for council?
I've been in Fort McMurray since 1983. I've worked here. I worked in Fort Mackay. I've been in this region for a long time. As I got closer to retirement, I knew that it was an opportunity where I could have the energy and the time to do the job properly. So I kind of waited until this point in my life because I have the time to do it and to do it properly.
Overall, I think history will look on this council fairly kindly in a lot of ways. So what are some of the things you'd like to see accomplished going forward?
My bottom line is fiscal responsibility. And everybody throws that out, Robbie. But what does that mean? To me, it means that we're being responsible with how we spend our money. For many, many years, we built and built and built. And we have a tremendous amount of infrastructure now, but we hadn't really planned to take care of that infrastructure. Part of fiscal management is our asset management going forward. We need to finish that. That's been going on for 10 years, and we're finally getting to a point, and we have over $7 billion worth of assets in our region. That takes a lot of money to maintain. As every building, road, bridge, everything gets older, it costs more money to take care of it. So when I talk about fiscal management, I'm talking about planning forward and ensuring that we have enough money to actually manage those things. People think that we're well endowed with money, and we're not. The past councils put aside some money. Most of that money's been accounted for in terms of capital projects and future projects, so on and so forth. So we're not as flush as people think we are. We're probably $100 million a year just for asset management, nothing else. And that hasn't been budgeted for in the past.
Hindsight's always 20/20. But looking back at some of these projects, for instance, the Conklin Rec Center, I fully support Conklin having a rec center. But I mean, the community barely has 100 and some people in a football field. Is that the right thing for the community? Or should we look back and say, how do we repurpose these buildings so it suits the community and create things in the community that actually make sense?
I think you start by talking to the community. That's not what was done. I've talked to many people in Conklin, and the building we built out there is not what the community wanted at all. They wanted a building that they could use, that they could host their elders' dinners in, that they could have a bingo in, that the community could celebrate a wedding in, all of those things. We built a building that they can't do that. That's not what they were looking for. The first thing we have to do is talk to the community. What exactly do you want? And then can we take the building to accommodate what they want? Like, we built a commercial kitchen that you need a license to basically operate out there. So should we rip out the commercial kitchen and put a fridge and a stove and whatever else is needed so that the community can come in and do their own dinner? They weren't looking for a commercial kitchen.
Why did that happen?
We had agenda-driven decisions. What I mean by that is they weren't decisions that were made based on a business case. They were decisions that were made on desire or wants. Instead of looking at a business case, talking to the community and developing a plan to do the right thing for the community, somebody just went, oh, they should have this. And so they went ahead and built it without a business case. We have to take a look at it differently because that building, as it gets older, it's going to start costing millions and millions of dollars of taxpayers' money every year just to maintain it. As every asset gets older, it costs more money. If you're not planning that when you're building, so from today forward, every capital item they approve should come attached with what's the operational costs and the asset management costs going to be related to that project. That's how we as councillors should be making decisions. That's not how it was done in the past. You didn't even have a business case that could justify that building. It was just yes for the building. Council wanted Conklin to have an appropriate facility. We just overbuilt it. We overbuilt many things.
See, I think the problem too is that, like, in these communities, even in Mackay, like, there's a new rec center that's going up, fine, but they don't have a grocery store. It's 45 minutes to downtown Fort McMurray. Why is there not a vision to build that type of things in these communities?
I have a simple answer to that, Robbie. We don't build business. That's private business. We support private business. That's what our role as council should be. Not to go and set up a grocery store, but to create an opportunity for somebody in the community to open a grocery store.
See, and I agree on that statement, and I understand that statement, but I'm going to counter it slightly. Conklin, that's how much do you think that was? 50 million, 60 million?
It was at least 50 million for that.
How many people live in Conklin?
I think at the time that it was built, there was 200.
200 people. So if you divided that, that's pretty much
a lot of money.
That's a house each.
Yep.
In a community that needs housing, and they don't have a grocery store. So why couldn't council pivot on that a little bit and say, okay, fine, we're not going to run a grocery store. We're going to build a building and lease you a space cheap so you can have a grocery store.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's creating the opportunity, Rob.
Right.
My term on council, and hopefully my next term on council, we're kind of cleaning up some of those decisions that were made in the past. Do I support a vision where we create opportunities in these communities? Absolutely. But they have to be self-determined by the community. It's not our job to go in and tell Conklin what they need. That's not our role. But when opportunities present themselves, we need to support those opportunities to the benefit of the community when they're looking for it. We meet with the community, and the community participates in that decision. We don't do it.
See, I think part of the problem, though, the argument's always like, well, we don't build grocery stores. And I'm like, we have the Conklin Rec Center. What's the harm if we lease part of that to a little grocery store?
There is none.
Right.
I don't have a problem because that's creating opportunity. See, it's a bigger picture than that, Rob. For too long, we've ventured into the federal lane and we ventured into the provincial lane. I'll give you an example. We run the water treatment plants. We run them in Mackay, we run them in Fort Chip, so on and so forth. I was there when the water treatment plant was built in the 80s. I was working for Fort McMurray, and it was a 90-10 split, 90% federal, 10% provincial. We're not getting 90% cost recovery on the water we're producing. How'd that happen? We're maybe getting 60%. So we're upside down by 30%. And we need to work with the federal government to make sure that we're getting the money we deserve. On the provincial side, through CIP funding, we're funding many programs that should have been funded by the provincial government. Business is another one. Like, where do we draw the line? We don't have the money anymore. Where do we get our money? Through taxation. The one thing that I've been trying to do since my term on council and that I will do on my next term on council is fight tooth and nail to make sure we don't increase property taxes. So the only way we survive is to get better at spending our money. If we've got no new revenue coming in, we have to get better with the money we have. That's what I'm talking about in terms of fiscal management. If you get a new expenditure, what comes off the plate? We're not having those discussions yet, Robbie, and we need to. So we've reduced our capital spend right now, and everything we do from a capital point of view, we take a look at it more strategically. What are going to be the long-term costs? What are the benefits? So on and so forth. Those weren't always done because we had the money.
Conklin has a lot of industry around it, but a beautiful Christina Lake that's not being really used. What if we built things like marinas, things to attract tourism? Like if you go to Sylvan Lake's entire economy is based on tourism around that lake, okay? Lac La Biche is kind of starting that a little more now. Banff, Jasper, all that. We're in a very unique way. We're surrounded by beauty, 6 lakes. Gregoire Lake is quite nice. One of the things is our blessing, to your point earlier, industry has enabled us to make mistakes and not worry too much about it. But what if we said, okay, listen, we're going to make this sort of like a resort community, and it becomes a secondary kind of source of revenue, a secondary economy, or even just economies. Why do people need to go all the way to Lac La Biche when we have Gregoire Lake 40 minutes away? Not even. Could we do that?
I think we restructured economic development. We put local people, and I think we're moving in that direction. Government moves very slow. We do policies and direction and so on and so forth, and then administration delivers. You have to get 11 people, or at least 6 of those 11 people, to agree on a direction, and then we move in that direction. So that's begun. We're a very unique region, unique in the whole world. We have so much in this region. We need to do the foundational things. We need to work with the federal government to make sure we're getting the proper remuneration for the water we produce for all of our communities. That needs to happen. We need to work with the province to make sure that they're delivering the programs that they're responsible for. Mental health, child welfare, all of those things. Those are the responsibility of our provincial government. So part of our role is to advocate for those things to happen with different levels of government. In terms of us here, we need to stop being in a box, stop thinking like we're in a box, and broaden our horizon. What is in the best interest of our region and our community? And that's the direction we need to go. So how do you do that? Well, you work with industry, not against industry. You work collaboratively with them to find a solution that benefits both parties. And that's absolutely possible, but you have to sit down at the table and work with them. Our current mayor is very capable of doing that and does that a lot. And I think we as a council have to support that moving forward so that the creative things that you're talking about have opportunity to evolve.
What do you think is council's biggest accomplishment that you guys have done in the last term?
Getting the dispatch back was huge. I think that's one of the big accomplishments. I think that we've established a much more positive relationship with the province. I think that's a huge accomplishment. We operate, as I'm sure you know, through the MGA at the courtesy of the province. We don't get to tell them what to do, but we get to work with them. We redid the land deal, right? So when the master land agreement first happened, we basically paid to fix the road to the airport, and in return, the province gave us land. The problem is that the economy changed, and the value of that land went down. And so we are no longer in an equitable position. And the province maintained control on the sale of that land, and so they kiboshed, quite frankly, several sales of the land up in Parsons because it wasn't bringing in the money that it was valued at the time of the agreement. By virtue of doing that, we were at a loss. So we've renegotiated that. We now went from 4 parcels of land to 10 parcels of land. And some of the land that we've acquired is actually service land, so it's of greater value. To make sure that the money is equal to what we paid, that we now have the land equal to that dollar value. The sale for the land up in Parsons is now moving forward. Walmart's actually already announced that they intend to build up there. So that's already in motion, and that's part of this master land agreement that comes from this. So one of the things I'd really like to do is to get better at telling people what we're doing and why we're doing it. It's never as simple as this. Sometimes it goes back 10 years. Like this master land agreement, that goes back years. So when you see the action today, it was started way back here. And so people make decisions, reactions, or views based on what they see today. But there's a whole history that goes with that, right? It's never as simple as just one thing. I think we as elected officials have to become more proficient at understanding our role and understanding that our job is to advocate for our region with the province and the feds. And that's something that I embrace very strongly.